Hi, and welcome to Sandy's Numerology. Today I'm going to be looking at, from a clearer picture of South Africa, Cyril. I'm going to be looking at the days in the lockdown, our 21 days, end of March and April to the 16th. So to begin, I'm going to look at South Africa. In 1989, we were really going through a tough time. But if we fast forward to Mandela's release in 1990, that added to a 1. We go to 1991, that added to an 11-2, which was all about negotiations and balancing things and trying to create some kind of stability. This time from the 89 to the 1994 was South Africa's Saturn Return. And that normally happens around the age of 27, 28, 29 years of age, and to 30, 31. But we are back there. So do remember that when we went to vote in a number 5 year, which was 1994. But we, born on the 31st of May, we have a 5. Actually, we've got double 5s. And we were now in a 5 year. We stood in the queue to vote for change. We are back there. And South Africa is now in its Saturn return, which normally happens around the age of 57, 58, 59 into the age of 60. And we are back there with different circumstances. The same thing happening with the markets, because in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 was all the banking and housing crisis and the markets going berserk. 2001, 2002, 2003 was September 11th. A lot of things happening there too, but we are back there. So now, when we had our 1992, 3, and 4, there was a lot of talk about where we were going, our feelings, our insecurities, our fears, people leaving the country. And this is the time where we're going to start re-looking at our valuables and our values, because South Africa is in a 3 personal. Our age is 58, which adds to a 4, which is where the lockdown is. But our 3 personal ties in to the being born on the 31st of May 1961. There's a 3 there, which is all about this collective. And as we've been having the restrictions put in place, this is a good thing. It's an incredibly good thing, because 2 months before our birthday, which was March, is when Cyril did his first announcement. And my prediction was that he would then do a lockdown, either before the end of March or by the 1st of April. And my prediction was correct. He's done our lockdown. So now, the 3 personal, where there was the collective, we are now going into a 4 personal, which is our restriction. So internally within the country, things come to an end. It is the year of death and endings, to reassess a base so that we can get back to what is solid in our country and take what we've got that is solid and to build from there. Our age will be 59. And please go and watch my 2 COVID-19 videos, because a 5 is flu, colds, import, export, difficulties, financial difficulties, so the lack of import-export, difficulties on a financial level. But we were going through that in 1993, 94. So we've been there. Very, very different, because there's too many people that have expectations. But to have expectations, you have to meet halfway, if not a little bit more. And this is, in this 4 personal year, is to reassess our lives, clean out, clear out, chuck out, sit with ourselves, be with ourselves, understand being with our children or whoever's in our homes. And to a lot of people who are going to be alone, generally know how to be alone and know how to do themselves, and will get down to doing some things that they haven't had time for. So for everybody, this is for you to reassess, redefine, and consolidate, and be very practical. That 4 now personal is now the physical borders of us and our boundaries that have been set by President Ramaphosa about staying at home. So if I do a little fast forward to 2021, we will be in a 5 personal. So yes, within the country, we've got changes and difficulties that are still going to be there. There's changes that need to be made, and the process of the changes are actually underway already. There will be a lot of discovery and disclosure. There will be a lot of people out there and companies out there that have tried to rip off citizens that will be brought to book and publicly exposed. And it continues with all the corruption that we've had that will resurface towards August of 2020 and continue into 2021. But our age will add to a 6. We will turn 60. And a 6 is about connection, reconnecting, referrals, recommendations, friends, family. And that is going to tell you of the connection of people that had now not been allowed to come in, wanting to come back in. And yes, could this be families or people that have unfortunately not been allowed back in for whatever reasons, as we dig deeper into this coronavirus crisis in 2020. But this will be business starting to get back into our economy. So it's a bit of a quid pro quo year in 2021 to 2022, where what is coming in is kind of going out. But there's a kind of a flow. But I think that there will be a lot of changes with the powers that be and governing bodies from across the board. How, and I've said this in my South Africa 2020 video, that the world as you know it is changing, but it's changing by the minute. And that year of 2020 to 2021, when our ages are 5, to 2021 to 2022, when our ages are 6, that is the 2-year of dramatic change. And we went through that when Nelson Mandela became president. And the world was absolutely shocked. We are a one nation, one destiny, as I'm saying this. And we came together then, and we will come together again in this time. But this time, we've got to dig deeper than just below our surface. We've got to dig real deep. And I'm going to say that this is a time for entrepreneurship. Our unemployment rate has got to change. Our young students that left college or left school in 2019, some got jobs, some haven't got jobs because we've come to a grinding halt. So it's a time for them to say, what can I do? So I'm going to say, we were going to come out of this. We're going to come out of this before the majority of countries, and I'm going to push it to about a 95%, we're ahead of the pack. Because we are such a young country and we learn from the events that other people are going through, other countries are going through. But it's time to support South Africa. It's a time to buy South Africa. It's a time to spend in South Africa. And it's a time to travel in South Africa. Going overseas, you know, I've said it before, they've got robots, they got towns, they got shopping centers. We have a country that is unbelievable. We've got weather that is unbelievable. We've got places to go on holiday that can cost you nothing because you've got a friend there. You can bunk up with them and go and see. Is it Table Mountain, or is it the Drakensberg, or is it to go to the Kruger Park? We have to get back to the building and the change we need to make within this. And none of that old rhetoric. This is now to be positive about South Africa, because going into lockdown is to how we value what we actually have. So South Africa, we're going to get through this one moment, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month at a time. We will come out of this. And you ask yourself, what can I do for South Africa? Now I'm going to look at President Cyril Ramaphosa, born on the 17th of November 1952. And you can go and look at my ANC Cyril video, which was not focused on South Africa. It was focused on Cyril and the ANC. And I said in both the global and I think in also the ANC that I know that Cyril has been working behind the scenes. And when our president came out and told us of our lockdown, I wonder how many people not only heard what he said, but actually heard what he has been doing behind the scenes. He's in a double 4 year. His Cyril is a number 4. So he has been, I think he's a list writer. He's been putting a list together, ticking off the list. I think his dial finger of his entire being out in the economy training is probably the best thing that ever happened to him. I remember when I was managing Miriam Makeba and we had a meeting with President Nelson Mandela because we were traveling from an invitation from a foreign president, and we always had to meet him in protocol. And while we were waiting, he was in a meeting, and then the doors opened and out walked Nelson Mandela, Cyril, Thabo Mbeki, gosh, I think Oliver Tambo was there. There must have been about 7 or 8 other people. And of course, everybody saw Miriam, and there was huge greetings and hugs. And, you know, Miriam was a very respectful woman when it got to superiors. And as they all left and we went into the meeting with President Nelson Mandela, Miriam and I had been having a conversation that she would vote for Cyril any day of the week. So in the meeting, we had a quick conversation that the decision had been made that Cyril Ramaphosa would not go into being in the government, so to speak, that to go out and get more economic understanding. And let's face it, it's paid off. He's not a man who brags. He's a very sensitive person. He's a very thoughtful person. Probably also thinks a little bit too much, but when he actions, being born on the 17th, he's all about passion, challenge, strong will. His 7 is about loyalty and commitment, and we know he's committed to the ANC. But he is committed to the country as well. And we saw it when he gave his speech. So with Cyril, he's in these double fours. And he alone needs to cut back in his personal life, lock down, reduce, simplify. So he's actually in 2020, which adds to a 4. His age adds to a 4. He's 67 at the moment. And from a business, because age is about business, he's about rules and regulations and boundaries, and he's instigated them. But he needs to also make sure that the people around him that are in close proximity, he also has boundaries for them. Because right now, we don't need to lose our president. We don't need him to get ill at all. So, Mr. President, please, there's a lot you can do for the country when you are well, not when you are ill. Don't believe that you're a man who gets sick very easily. But what concerns me is from November of this year, he goes to a 5-5. So let's bring that back 2 months. So September, he goes into flu kind of year. And let's understand one thing, this coronavirus has already these 2 mutations. Looking at the World Health Organization's page. So each year we do have flus and we have flu injections. So could this mutate? Could this continue? Could this come back or resurface because of negligence and lack of cleanliness? So probably Cyril will put some other boundaries in to deal with import and export. And I think people coming into the country, I don't think they would ever get lax or ever should get lax on testing people, no matter whether the figures drop, etc. So Cyril's got one of the hardest years ahead of him. And he's got to stand his ground. And let's face it, he's probably one of the few people that is presidential. When you look at any other heads of political parties, none of them are presidential. Nothing like him. He doesn't have an agenda. That's really... He has a passion. He has a loyalty, a commitment. He has a dedication. Cyril has got a lot of difficulties as a person, as a human being. But I think he's a man that needs to be applauded. We've been saying he's been quiet. But then we had Thabo Mbeki, who was a 4 life path. He generally never spoke until he had something to say. He was also an economics man. And he was probably, since Nelson Mandela, one of the better presidents that we've had, obviously, until Cyril. But I think we are now seeing him. We might not see as much, but when we see him, he's going to be making a statement. And he is the boss. And he's not doing this for himself. He's doing this restriction and boundaries and rules and regulations for us. But he's going to be a part of all of the talking of how we need to change our systems. And we know that that dial finger of his, of all of the people that he's met along the way during his out there in the workings of South Africa, whether it was the unions, the mines, doesn't matter where he was getting a training of note, but he was also meeting people of note. And two of them, Nicky Oppenheimer and Johann Rupert, I reckon he dialed them and they dialed right back, and they've put up this 1 billion each. So matching Cyril to South Africa, we go into a 4 personal year. Cyril's in a 4 public, which is when he goes out of his home into the greater world and being South Africa. So he's on track. Next year, May in 2021, we go to a 5 personal. Cyril is on track from November of 2020. So he is a full 6-7 months ahead of South Africa, and he is going to instill some changes. I reckon there's going to be some monetary changes too. So bless you, Cyril, President Cyril Ramaphosa. I think you really have everybody's attention, and I think you have our support. You definitely have mine. Thank you for watching Sandy's Numerology. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click on the bell icon for notification of any new shows.